You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. And Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, happy almost Thanksgiving.
Happy almost Thanksgiving to you too, my friend. And hey, Thanksgiving, it's going to be busy at Lambeau Field, and hopefully you're there to join the festivities on Thanksgiving if you're listening with us. A few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. If you're following with us on YouTube, thank you so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, tell whoever you want. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the like button, tell everybody about us. Also, you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on YouTube with us live, with us later, whatever you prefer. You can watch us at Spotify or listen to us at Spotify as well. But right there, ticketking.com, packerstalk.com/tickets. And yeah, follow along. And hey, it's a fun year to follow the Packers, Gil. How about another good win for Green Bay on Sunday, and those two free agent additions in March just looking better and better every game.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to name the team's offensive MVP right now, I think it has to be Josh Jacobs. And if you were going to name the Packers' defensive MVP right now, it's got to be Xavier McKinney. So Brian Gutekunst hit it out of the park with both of those big free agent signings.
Oh, it's just massive. And Josh Jacobs rushing for 160 yards, scoring 3 rushing touchdowns in Sunday's 38-10 win over the 49ers. That was the most rushing yards allowed to a single opposing rusher by the 49ers this season. First one to hit the century mark against the Niners this year. And he was so emotional after the game, after that San Francisco win, just talking about how much it's meant to be a Packer and how it's just been night and day, essentially different in terms of culture, and winning is first, football is first, everything else it comes second and later in Green Bay, and how appreciative he is of being a Green Bay Packer as opposed to his initial stop in the NFL with the Las Vegas Raiders. And that's just really cool to see. And then Xavier McKinney, man, you talk about a guy who he was coming off his probably worst game of the year in that narrow win in Chicago, and comes back with a dominant third quarter individually where he broke up a key fourth down pass in the second half when the Niners are driving, a 4th-and-2 pass of McCaffrey. He broke it up, and then having a key interception that set up the Packers' essentially game-sealing touchdown, what later proved to be the game-sealing touchdown in that third quarter alone. He made a case for Defensive Player of the Year just with those couple plays, and he's just stacking success, and it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is this. I mean, first of all, McKinney tied for the league lead in interceptions, so you got to give him credit for that. He has 7 interceptions. How many interceptions did the Packers have last year as a team?
7.
So yeah, that alone speaks. But the thing I love about both of these guys is it's not just what they do on the field. It's the attitude. It's the way they set the tone in the locker room. Josh Jacobs in particular had the difficult task of coming in to replace Aaron Jones. And I mean, such a popular player. You know, I remember that audio clip. Was it Dontavian Wicks who was saying to him, hey, you're the reason I'm doing this. I mean, how do you replace a guy who was so inspirational and such a part of the culture of the team on and off the field? And yet Josh Jacobs has not only done that, but he sort of set his own, way about it and just made his own imprint on this team and on this town. And it's been great to see. And then, as a safety, the safety room last year killed the Packers, not just last year, probably the year before that as well. Xavier McKinney and then Evan Williams and Javon Bullard. It's like flipping it on its, upside down. All of a sudden, the safety room goes from the weakness on the defense to probably its biggest strength.
Brian Gutekunst attacked that weakness for the Green Bay Packers in the offseason at the safety room. And it was when the Josh Jacobs signing happened and the Aaron Jones release happened shortly after that, it was a cold and calculated move. And that's just Brian Gutekunst is a cold and calculated guy because guess what? The good NFL GMs, they're cold and calculated because they know what's best for the football team. I love Aaron Jones. I love what he did in Green Bay, but durability was an issue. Availability was an issue. Especially his final season with the Packers. And it would have been amazing to see a backfield of Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones didn't want to take a pay cut. Now, you can't blame the guy. It was a business decision, and that's just the way it goes in football. And that's how it's been in the NFL. And it won't be the last heartbreaking cap casualty. It wasn't the first one either. That's just kind of the way it goes. But being able to get a guy like Josh Jacobs, who has just even improved the running back position, is just unbelievable work by the Packers front office. And literally these two guys aren't with the Green Bay Packers. What are we? Maybe 4? Are we 4-7? Maybe at best this year.
Yeah, it's not the same team. That's for darn sure. And, again, I was always a big Aaron Jones fan, but no way that Aaron Jones can handle the ball as often as Josh Jacobs did last week. In that game against San Francisco, he can't handle 20, 25 carries a game, maybe once a year, maybe if he's still healthy come playoff time. But Josh Jacobs, it's a whole different level of the ability to be the bell cow back.
And I think Aaron Jones in his whole Packer career maybe went over 25 carries once in his whole Packer career. That's just they need a guy who could ground and pound when you need a ground and pound guy. And when Emmanuel Wilson comes in, Chris Brooks comes in, they've been really solid because guess what? They know they don't have many opportunities because Josh Jacobs is going to get those carries, and rightfully so. But yeah, just amazing additions, and hopefully it could lead to some better playoff success this year. Maybe we get a little further this year, even though we still have the youngest team in the NFL still this upcoming season. But first things first, we got to talk about the upcoming game, Week 13 against the Miami Dolphins, a Dolphins team that had a rough stretch. They were 2-6. They've won their last 3. They look like they're just a completely different team now that Tua Tagovailoa is playing. He's out of the concussion protocol. And the Packers, obviously, they dealt with some injuries last Sunday like the 49ers did. Not at the level the 49ers did, but they're dealing with some injuries right now. Jaire Alexander, he missed that game with a knee injury. Edrin Cooper missed that game with a hamstring injury. Romeo Doubs left that game with a concussion. He had some big third down grabs in that game, and you got to think he's unlikely for Thursday for Thanksgiving, given the quick turnaround. The Packers now, they haven't actually practiced, but they've been given essentially injury designations, just estimated injury designations this week in practice. Isaiah McDuffie, he has a practice this week by that designation with an ankle. And Xavier McKinney was not at practice on Tuesday due to a personal matter. Matt LaFleur said he should be back in Green Bay this evening. So TBD on that. Hopefully everything's okay with Xavier McKinney. Speaking after we just talked about how much of a savior he's been for the Packers defense, and hopefully we see him on Thursday and he's in good spirits.
Yeah, hopefully everything gets squared away and is okay and he's ready to go. I'm confident he should be, but sometimes things are out of your control.
Yeah, and for the Dolphins coming up this weekend, obviously they have some weapons on the offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, who's having a resurgence at the tight end spot this year as the veteran, Devon Achane, a really good running back, just a really good player out of the backfield for the Dolphins. And then Tua is Tua. He's a good player. He was a winner at Alabama, much like Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. To those in the chat chiming in, just wanted to let you know, yeah, we know they went to Alabama. We knew they were great players at Alabama too. But not having Jaire Alexander and Edrin Cooper didn't seem to be a huge issue for the Packers on Sunday, but not having these guys on Thursday against a team that's a little healthier on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, having your starting quarterback certainly helps. That could play a factor coming up on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it could. And, the thing is when you're facing – I don't want to – let's save the matchup stuff for a little bit later, but you really – there are certain reasons why you really want to have those two players in particular, Jaire Alexander, Edrin Cooper, available for this game.
And before we get to the Packer defense, let's talk about the Packer offense against the Miami defense. Packers total offense this year, 5th overall in the NFL. They're 8th in scoring, averaging 26.2 points per game, 11th in passing, averaging 230.7 passing yards per game, and 3rd in rushing, 151.6 rushing yards per game. The Miami defense, well, they've been pretty darn good this year, Gil. 6th overall in total defense. They're allowing 21.5 points per game. That's tied for 11th in the NFL. 197.5 passing yards per game. That's 8th in the NFL. Helps to have a stud corner in Jalen Ramsey back for a full season right now. And then their rushing defense, 106.9 rushing yards per game they're allowing. That's 9th in the NFL. Gil, between this Green Bay offense and this Miami defense, what's a matchup that we should be looking forward to?
Look, to me, it's similar to what we saw last week. Green Bay has to establish the running game first and foremost. And, that's going to be, Josh Jacobs in part. But to me, the offensive line, the interior offensive line of the Packers has to figure out how to block Calais Campbell.
Yeah, Calais Campbell is just he's old reliable, man. That guy is so good. He's been so good for so long. He's a behemoth of a man. He seems like one of the better dudes in the NFL too. It seems like the reason he has a job is because he's a great locker room presence. And he's a great teammate to have. And Calais Campbell, he's tied for the team lead with sacks with fellow defensive lineman Zach Seiler, if you watch this guy, man, he's one of the most underrated interior defensive linemen in football. He had 10 sacks last season. Wasn't really a high draft pick coming into the draft. He started his career with the Baltimore Ravens, found a home with the Miami Dolphins. And these guys both have 4 sacks this year. They also have some solid edge players too, some young talent there, but some solid guys who help complement them well with rookie Chop Robinson, veteran Emmanuel Ogba. They both have 3.5 sacks this year. But you talk about Calais Campbell, though. Yeah, this guy is in his late 30s, 4 sacks, leads the team with 9 tackles for loss. Zach Seiler has 7 tackles for loss. These guys are a handful.
They are. And that's why you're definitely going to need to see Josh Myers and Sean Ryan and Elton Jenkins kind of try to control the middle of that offensive line. And again, you have a situation where you just need – we saw so many missed tackles that Josh Jacobs forced last week. Boy, if he could do something not to that maybe extent, because that's very hard to duplicate. But if he can make some more people miss on Thursday night, it could go a long way.
And this segues perfectly into what I want to talk about is my matchup to watch, and it involves the rushing offense, but it's more so from the coaching standpoint. Head coach Matt LaFleur against Miami Dolphins run game coordinator Joe Barry. And any Packer fan, yeah, you remember the infamous Joe Barry. He was the defensive coordinator for the previous 3 seasons. Obviously, Packer fans lost their freaking minds with Joe Barry really as the defensive coordinator in Green Bay. Seems to have found a home in Miami as a run game coordinator where, again, the Miami rushing defense, they are the 9th best rushing defense in football this year. They're allowing opponents to rush for 4.3 yards per carry. That's tied for 9th best in the NFL as well. But hey, these guys have a lot of familiarity with one another, working together the previous 3 years. Also, they worked together when they were both with the LA Rams, the one year that Matt LaFleur was there before taking on OC duties with the Tennessee Titans before he got the head coaching job in Green Bay. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, you got a bell cow running back who's 3rd in the NFL in rushing behind Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry with 944 yards this year. And I just want to see who's going to get the best of this matchup, because this is either going to be Matt LaFleur saying, hey, you should have listened to me, or this is going to be Joe Barry saying, hey, you should have listened to me. And this is either going to be Joe Barry saying, like, this is what you missed, this is what you're missing. And this is going to be a compelling matchup to see how these guys compete against one another from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, and they're friends off the field.
They are.
Top of that.
Yeah,
so
they are. They're not enemies from what we know.
No. On Thursday, they'll be frenemies for 3 hours plus, but that's about it. And yeah, that is an intriguing matchup. And look, I wish Joe Barry all the best, except this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe Barry seemed like a very likable guy. It just seemed like his style was just not fit for what Green Bay wanted to do. Jeff Hafley seems to be a nice change of pace guy. And Joe Barry is just, I think his home is as a high-level defensive coach, not a defensive coordinator, but I think this is a kind of a perfect role for him to be in this role. And Miami's playing very good football on the defensive side, and they've been very good against the run. Obviously helps that Calais Campbell is still playing out of his mind even so late in his career and so many years into his career. It's 38 years old. The guy just doesn't seem to – I thought he was going to retire after last year. And he just – it's like, it seems to be no end in sight for his NFL career. But, yeah, this is the matchup I'm looking forward to watching. Matt LaFleur was so creative against the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday, and Josh Jacobs ran so well. But coming off of a short week, it's you don't really get to install a lot of new stuff. So you got to stick with what works, and hopefully the Packers can figure something out against a good Dolphins run defense.
They have to. And let's face it, you're not going to win this game if Jordan Love is throwing 50 passes. It's just not the way this team wins football games. You've got to establish the run. And you've got to, part of it is also keeping that very explosive Miami offense off the field.
If Jordan Love throws less than 25 passes, we're doing something right on the offensive side of the football. And if Josh Jacobs also gets 20-plus carries, we're doing something right on the offensive side of the football. Now, let's switch it up. The Miami offense against the Green Bay defense. Miami's total offense this year, 19th overall in the NFL. Now, big caveat here, they were missing Tua Tagovailoa for a few games this year after he sustained a pretty severe concussion earlier in the season, but he's back now. The offense has been playing so much better. Their offense this year averaging 19.5 points per game, 24th in the NFL, 207.1 passing yards per game, 19th in the NFL as well, and 116.8 rushing yards per game. That's 16th in the league. Green Bay's defense, total 11th defense overall this year in the NFL. The big win against San Francisco certainly helped these rankings this week. They're allowing 20.3 points per game on defense. That's 10th in the NFL. 206.5 passing yards per game. That's 11th in the league. And a 112.7 rushing yards per game. That's 12th in the NFL. Gil, what's we were talking about possibly not having Jaire Alexander and Edgerrin Cooper. Tyreek Hill is obviously on the other side. What's the matchup that we got to be looking forward to watching this Thursday?
Got to figure out how to slow down and contain Tyreek Hill. To me, that's the biggest one. I mean, Jalen Waddle is definitely also very dangerous, but not having Jaire Alexander against those two speedy guys really has me concerned. And, to me, the question then becomes, how does the defense set it up? Because you're not going to want to play a lot of man, but how do you set it up that you keep these two big play machines from making big plays?
Yeah, these are two of the best of the bunch. I mean, you're talking about Tyreek Hill, a guy who has 49 catches, 571 yards, 3 touchdowns this year. That not up to his high standards, but again, this team is completely different without Tua Tagovailoa. Jalen Waddle has 41 catches, 548 yards this year, and 2 touchdowns as well. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that San Francisco game on Sunday, Gil, Brandon Allen played pretty well at quarterback. And the Packers had a good game plan. Even though Brandon Allen, he didn't have his left tackle, Trent Williams, who's going to the Hall of Fame one day, but he still had Deebo Samuel. He still had Christian McCaffrey. He still had Juwan Jennings. He still had George Kittle. And the Packers did pretty well. They had a good game plan against Deebo and Juwan Jennings. Didn't really get them going. Christian McCaffrey, he couldn't really get going out of the backfield. And I still think the best way to limit these guys is you got to stop the run first and then just rally to the football. That's what you got to do. And it's kind of funny. I remember when Tyreek Hill played for the Kansas City Chiefs, and when Aaron Rodgers had COVID a few years ago and Jordan Love started, the offense struggled, but they had a perfect game plan against Tyreek Hill. And so if they could take those notes from what Joe Barry cooked up a few years ago against that Chiefs team that was a little more loaded on offense, that's a good recipe. And combined with what they did against San Francisco on Sunday, it's a good recipe for success for the Packers defense.
It is, and it is going to be important to actually execute that well, because I'll tell you right now, if Miami is coming up on 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2, that they have a lot of options on offense, and then they could take those shots and not have to worry about it. You come up 2nd and 2, you want to throw long. If you don't make it, 3rd and 2 is just fine. So stopping the run sets up a lot of things for the Green Bay defense.
Yeah, and the guy who engineers all the offense, it starts and ends with Tua Tagovailoa. That's my matchup is Tua Tagovailoa against Xavier McKinney. They were teammates. They were in the same recruiting class at Alabama as well back in the day. And the Dolphins, they're 3-2 since Tagovailoa returned from IR, 3-0 in their last 3 games. And those 2 losses were by 1 point against Arizona and 3 points against Buffalo. They're 4-3 with Tagovailoa as the starting quarterback this year. You're talking about Xavier McKinney. Again, we talked about earlier this episode, registered a critical 4th down pass breakup and his league-leading 7th interception in the 3rd quarter of Sunday's win to help Green Bay separate from the 49ers in that game. Just an incredible bounce-back game after what was his worst game of the year in that win at Chicago. And Tua this year, the guy is super accurate, 73.3% completion percentage, 1,760 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions in 7 games. And the Dolphins in games where Tua starts and finishes, they're averaging 27.5 points per game this year. Right now, that would be 6th overall in the NFL. This team is completely different with Tua. You got to get pressure on him. You got to make him uncomfortable, and it all starts with Tua Tagovailoa.
And I'll add this, especially after what we saw 2 weeks ago in Chicago. Do not let Tua beat you with his legs.
Correct.
You cannot let him scramble for positive yardage on a regular basis. So, whether you end up using Quay Walker as a spy, especially if you don't have Edgerrin Cooper, somebody has got to spy on Tua and not let him pick up key first downs with his legs.
Yeah, Tua's just he's a baller, man. Like the dude's a stud. He got paid this offseason for a reason because he's a darn good football player. And Xavier McKinney's just got to keep his eyes on him and just got to help. If Xavier McKinney has a good game, Dolphins offense is going to struggle this week. That's all I'm saying. But we'll see. Mike McDaniel's a smart guy on that Miami sideline. He'll do his best to limit Xavier McKinney's impact, and he'll cook up a good game plan coming up. These guys come, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur, they come from the same tree. Remember, when Matt LaFleur was initially hired as Green Bay's head coach, he wanted Mike McDaniel as his offensive coordinator, and Kyle Shanahan said no, and for good reason, because the guy's a heck of a coach.
He truly is, and again, one of those matchups within the game that you just love to see.
Now, before we get to some key stats, those of you following along on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you may be watching, thank you for tuning in. We're going to get to some predictions later in this episode. And Gil and I are going to talk about what we're thankful for the Packers, just in life in general. Feel free to chime in the comments section if you want us to read off what you're thankful for, what your predictions are for the game. If you don't like my facial hair, if you don't like Gil and I's glasses, whatever, hey, we're big boys. We could take it. So. But getting into some key stats real quick. Turnover ratio this year. Packers +8 this year after they were +3 on Sunday, tied for 6th best in the NFL. The Dolphins -1 this season, tied for 13th worst in the NFL. Penalties. Green Bay's offense, 75 penalties this year. A little better, again, since the bye week. 16th most in the NFL with 75 penalties on offense, 71 penalties on defense. That's 17th overall in the NFL. Miami's offense, 67 penalties this year, 12th fewest in the league, 75 penalties on defense, tied for 10th most. They're a little bit aggressive on that defensive side of the football. 3rd down percentage, the money down. Green Bay's offense, 37.6% this year. It was a little better on Sunday, 19th overall in the NFL, still ways to go. Defensively, 35.7%. That's 12th best in the league. Miami's offense and defense, well, they're pretty darn good on 3rd down, Gil. 41.8% on offense. That's 10th best in the NFL. 33.6% on defense. That's 5th best in the NFL. And then red zone offense. Green Bay was 5 for 5 on red zone TD percentage in red zone TD possessions on Sunday. Big weekend for them. 54.6% of the year, 20th in the NFL. 60% on defense. That's 20th as well. Miami's offense and defense, pretty darn good in the red zone. 11th best in the red zone on offense at 57.6% and 7th best on defense at 48.3%. So a lot of numbers I'm throwing out there, Gil. The red zone, the Packers need to be pretty darn good again on Sunday, I think, or on Thursday, excuse me. I feel like that's going to be a big difference. 2 things they got to do. There are 2 guys who I think they need to key on in the red zone, and we saw both of them score last week against San Francisco, and that is Josh Jacobs with the run and Tucker Kraft through the air. Throw it to him behind the line of scrimmage and just let the man run. Yeah, Tucker Kraft does not get tackled by the first guy, rarely ever. He just doesn't. He makes a point to make sure a DB doesn't bring him down, so I love that. And I loved on his touchdown, he launched Josh Myers, his lead blocker, into the end zone because he was just running with that much force. And then Josh Jacobs, I love that Matt LaFleur in the red zone this week compared to last week in Chicago, where Matt LaFleur just didn't get cute. He said, hey, second and one or third and goal or second and goal from the one, I'm just going to give it to my running back. I'm going to let him do the work. Just hand off straight up the middle. It doesn't have to be that complicated. He wasn't getting cute. Just smash mouth football. That is the formula for the Green Bay Packers on offense. So to me, that's how you got to attack this Miami defense. I know Zach Seiler and Calais Campbell are really, really good interior defensive linemen for the Miami Dolphins. But hey, we got some good players in the O-line and a good offensive running back too.
Yeah, and you got to play to your strengths. And, if your strength beats their strength, you're in really good shape.
And the injury report for the Miami Dolphins, just to catch you all up. Again, these are estimated designations this week. No one's actually practicing on a short week. But some key DNPs, though, for the Miami Dolphins, including offensive tackle Tehan Armstead, quarterback Kendall Fuller, and linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. Now, Tyreek Hill, he was added to the injury report on Tuesday. He was designated because of a wrist injury, which he suffered on that drive before the first game of the season. I don't have to go into great detail about that. If you're curious, just Google Tyreek Hill arrest. That's all I got to say. And then also a personal matter going on with Tyreek Hill. Listed as DNP on Tuesday, something to keep in mind of. On the IR for the Miami Dolphins right now includes offensive lineman, former first-round pick Austin Jackson, linebacker Jalen Phillips, wide receiver Braxton Berrios, and former Packer Grant DuBose. He's on the IR. Unfortunately, he was claimed off of waivers by the Dolphins before the season started after the Packers let him go after a really good training camp. And then on the player unable to perform list, the PUP list, linebacker Bradley Chubb had that nasty ACL injury a season ago, still isn't quite yet ready to return to the Miami Dolphins. But a lot of key injuries for the Miami Dolphins, like everybody right now, Gil. But that Tyreek Hill matter is something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, it makes a big difference if he's not available. It changes the whole way I think that Miami would attack the Packers, and it's obviously they'd be minus one of their really, really big weapons. Oh,
big time. It's like that would essentially even out the Packers not having Jaire Alexander at corner. Big time.
More or less.
It would. Gil, why does Green Bay win on Thursday?
Green Bay wins if they establish the run and on defense if they prevent big plays. If Miami scores quick, if they get, 40, 50, 75-yard plays, that bodes poorly for the Packers. And if the Packers can't run the football, that's the big problem on offense.
The Packers with Jordan Love had their first turnover-free game on Sunday, and they scored 38 points. They were 5-5 in the red zone. It was beautiful football for the most part on offense. They kind of stalled a little bit end of second quarter, early third quarter, but they got back on the tracks and got the train rolling again. Don't give the ball away. The Miami Dolphins have not really taken the ball away too much this year. They have the 10th fewest takeaways this year in the NFL. Don't give it away and make Josh Jacobs the focal point of the offense. I'm with you, Gil, where that guy is if he is the focal point of the offense and you revolve the game plan around him, that's a good thing. That's good planning, and that's going to be a good day for Green Bay. Why do the Packers lose?
They lose if they beat themselves. I'm talking about penalties, which have been much better the last couple of games. I'm talking about turnovers, and I'm going to add one other thing. Dropped passes. Boy, has that been an issue for this team. And now we probably won't have Romeo Doubs. So does Dontavian Wicks step up and make some catches? Can Christian Watson string together a couple of strong games in a row? Mm-hmm. We need to hang on to those passes. I want the run to be the primary way we move the team. But if you're only throwing 25 passes in a game, you can't afford to have 3 drops.
Now, Dave's in the chat saying inside power and duo. I love it. Just keep doing that all game. I'm with you. If Green Bay loses, it's because they got away from the run game and the turnover bug, they catch it again, and the cold doesn't phase the Miami Dolphins. And they're going to be playing in mid-20-degree weather. It's not really friendly usually when you're coming from South Florida. Not really the best thing if you're the Miami Dolphins. And, Gil, I got one more question for you. Is Jordan Love going to get a turkey leg this year?
I think Josh Jacobs is getting the turkey leg, but that's just me.
I feel like Jordan Love, if the Packers win on Thursday, give Jordan Love a turkey leg, and NBC be like, hey, Fox, this is how you do it. This is how you reward. This is how it'll be a sympathy turkey leg possibly, but Jordan Love's got to get his turkey leg this year. That's what I'm hoping for. And
I hope so.
Gil, what's your prediction? Will Jordan Love, will Josh Jacobs, will anyone on the Packers get a turkey leg on Thursday?
I think they will. I think the cold weather figures into this. I think the Packers at home figures into this. And I think the Packers minimize the mistakes. I'm going Packers 24, Dolphins 21.
I'm thinking because I know the Dolphins are playing better football lately, but Green Bay, they seem to be moving in the right direction, especially in the offensive side of the football. Defense, they seem like they're getting a little better, especially on the pass rush is getting a little better. It's not where it should be, but it is improving. It is improving on that side of the ball, believe it or not. I think the cold is just too much for the Miami Dolphins, and playing at home on a short week is just hugely beneficial for the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers win 27-20, and we have a happy turkey day. We have a belly full of turkey and gravy and all the good stuff, Gil, and a Packers win as well. And Gil, with the short week and everything, obviously you're going into hyper mode when it comes to working and churning out articles. What articles do you have coming up on Cheesehead TV and the Packers Post?
Well, on the Packers Post, I took a look at the impact that Xavier McKinney has had both on and off the field for the Packers. And Cheesehead TV, the article goes up Thursday, so I haven't written it yet, but I will have something really good up on Cheesehead, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
Well, hopefully you have it up before dinner time. So
yeah, oh yeah, it'll be live by 3:00.
Good. I'm just making sure, Gil. I don't want you to be working while everyone's eating at the table and eating all your food. So just want to make sure. Hey, you ready for some trivia?
I am ready for some trivia.
All right, sounds good. Well, going into Thursday's Thanksgiving tilt between the Dolphins and Packers, this will mark the 17th overall meeting between these teams and the second time these teams have played on a holiday. Last time these two teams met was nearly 2 years ago on Christmas Day in Miami. Packers kept their playoff dreams alive with a 26-20 win over the Dolphins. Green Bay intercepted Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa 3 times that day. Gil, who were the 3 Packers to register INTs against the Dolphins on Christmas Day all the way back in 2022?
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Two of them are not with the Packers anymore.
All right. I will play the percentages. One of them should be Jaire.
You got it?
One of them 2 years ago, you're saying? Then one of them is probably Rasul Douglas.
Yep.
And then I'll go. Boy. I'll say Darnell Savage.
Close but no cigar. Devondre Campbell was the third one. And all 3 of those interceptions came in the fourth quarter of that game. Alexander, he registered the first INT one play after Aaron Rodgers was intercepted by Miami's Cotter Kohu, I think that's how you say it, Kohu, in the Dolphins' end zone. On the next drive, Miami had a 9-play drive, which ended with a Devondre Campbell interception deep in Green Bay territory. Packers would kick a field goal in the ensuing offensive possession, and then 2 plays into the Dolphins' next drive with 1:34 left in the game, Tua was intercepted by Rasul Douglas, slamming the door shut, helping the Packers hold on to a 26-20 Christmas Day victory. Tagovailoa missed the following game after that loss with the concussion, which was likely suffered against the Packers in that Christmas Day game. Probably should have left the game at that point. I think that was probably it. We don't really know. Only Tua and the Dolphins doctors know that, but hey, you don't apologize for winning the NFL, Gil.
No, you don't. And yeah, I remember that game. He should have come out. Very little doubt after seeing some of the hits he took that's where he got that concussion.
I personally hope just Tua. I hope he gets healthy, man, because he makes the game of football better, in my opinion, and he's just such a good player. I just wish he could just protect himself a little better. That's all I want to get at. Even as a football fan, I just want him medically to be okay.
As a human being, I want him medically to be okay. I just don't want him to get too good until Friday.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like no concussion, but he plays like poop. I like that.
So starting Friday, he could ball out for the rest of the season.
I like it. I like it a lot. And obviously, Gil, Thanksgiving coming up this Thursday. What are we thankful for? What are you thankful for the Packers? Personally, what are you thankful for?
Personally, obviously, health and family top the list. So we'll start with that. For the Packers, if I'm going to break it down to a couple of things, I'll give you three little ones for the Packers. Number one, we have the best home field in the entire NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, we have the best owner in the NFL by far.
Owners.
That's right. All of us who own stock in the Green Bay Packers. So I'll go with that. And, let's stick with those two for now. Let's stick with those two.
That sounds good. Well, personally, I'm thankful, obviously, for my wife, my family. I have a lot of nieces and nephews. My brother and sister-in-law, they welcomed a new member to the Tehan family earlier this year. Thankful for the little guy. He's hilarious. He's pudgy. He eats everything. He chews on everything. He's a fun guy, and we're gonna make sure he's a Packer fan too. We're gonna mold him while he's young. And then, secondly, for the Packers, hey man, I'm thankful for all those things you said, but I'm really thankful for Brian Gutekunst that he's our general manager, because getting off of the Aaron Rodgers contract when he did proved to be just saving grace for the Green Bay Packers. Adding Josh Jacobs when you had Aaron Jones, a player who is so beloved in Green Bay for Packer fans, having the courage to get that guy. Xavier McKinney, adding him, drafting Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Jordan Morgan, Evan Williams this past offseason. Not being patient with kicker and getting a better kicker in Brandon McManus, and a guy who's done a really good job since joining the Packers. I'm really thankful for Brian Gutekunst, because honestly, and Malik Willis, making the trade for Malik Willis too. He doesn't make those moves, man. I don't know where the Packers would be right now. So thank you, Brian Gutekunst, for making this football season a lot of fun. It's a big reason why it's been so much fun.
Yeah, it is a big reason, and it's great to have that kind of talent running this franchise.
Hey, Gil, real quick, what's your favorite side dish at Thanksgiving? I got to ask.
I'm going to stick with the basics. Mashed potato, love it. It's just simple, straightforward. Love it all year round. It goes with everything.
Mashed potatoes, dinner rolls, and mac and cheese if it's there.
All right, there you go.
My cousin's bringing smoked mac and cheese to Thanksgiving this year. I am pumped. So it's going to be fantastic. But anyways, the Dolphins on a 3-game winning streak, come to Lambeau Field, play the Packers, looking for their third straight win and 7th win in their last 8 games. Kickoff from the frozen tundra, scheduled for 8:20 Eastern, 7:20 Central, 6:20 Mountain, and lunchtime over in Hawaii. Gil, the Dolphins won on Black Friday in New York a season ago. Let's hope they don't repeat history again on Thursday during Thanksgiving weekend and get another win in the cold.
Time for the Packers to reclaim Thanksgiving and continue their winning ways.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Let's get it. Go Pack, go, baby.
All right, go Pack, go. Well, that's it for today. We'll be right back here next week. And again, next week we'll be here on Tuesday as the Packers play Thursday again. Follow us on Twitter at Gil Packers and at GB Packers Sean. Stay up to date on all things Packers or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.